we've been breaching our way through the corridor, Jeremy. We finally fought off most of those timeshares. There's been an unfortunate amount of damage.
Not timeshares, man. Not timeshares. Vacation rentals, buddy.
Vacation rentals. Whatever. We've secured your place among the gentry of the Ozarks. I've been on this.
Total different, and timeshares, not a good thing. So I'll just go with that. I'm not going to poke fun at any organization. I'm just saying, not a good thing.
There's two worst decisions in my life: the first timeshare and then the second timeshare. Anyway, cue the music. Welcome to Karate Without Belts, folks. It's been a minute. I'm John.
I'm Jeremy.
Jeremy, how the hell you been?
Well, as you know, I've been very, very busy. Within the last month, purchased another lake house, redecorated and remodeled some stuff, and have been renting it out for like the last two and a half weeks. So it's quite a whirlwind. So, but now it's being rented out, it's kind of calmed down. So,
yeah, I've been on a secret mission to basically establish peace in the southeast. I don't think it's gone well, and I may have in fact instigated a complete new South Pacific war secretly, but we'll see what happens. I was trying to explain away our hiatus of essentially a month.
Very good.
So we've been, summering and essentially, what you've been doing, and kind of what was essentially a low point in terms of schooling or schools for me, and then just essentially ramped up in a super way. So that's why we haven't really recorded anything. We really haven't had time to put anything out. That's just life. Until somebody wants to independently fund this podcast, you're just going to get it when you get it. Sorry. Unless we want to start making people pay for it, which is not going to happen any day soon. Unless they want to. So, Jeremy, what have you been up to in terms of training? Other than lifting bricks and
building fire pits and patios and all that kind of stuff.
That's good training. That's outside. That's weights. That's using your mind.
Yeah, I mean, moving about 4 tons of that has been. I felt that I'm not 25 anymore. Let's put it that way. But one of the things I've really started going in and analyzing is more the tactical side of weaponry, instead of, we just do it this way. We do it this way. It's like, well, why is this going to work? And can I make this work empty hand wise? And so I'll do the movements from a weapon, and I'll do it empty hand. I'm like, well, let's go back, see if something's not right. Where's the weakness? Where's the strength in it? Things like that. So, in particular, it's been Cheesy's, Joe, and Manji Sai. So. And that's a combination. So
that's a really good combination. That would be one weapon where you simply don't need anything to actually accomplish the katas. Something where you can just use a Swiffer, which is effective, or just grab a stick, break it off a tree. Another one that will probably run you back about $300.
Yeah,
on a good day.
So, on a fortunate day, yeah.
It's a good combination right there. What is it? I've been trying to mix a couple of different things together, doing like that kind of study research. And another would be really getting into shadow boxing. I've mentioned down here before, but I'm just trying to actually get it right in terms of that, and not just being like Rocky shadow boxing, because there's no way you can do it wrong. But I feel that karate is more or less primed for that. And we don't really talk about it. We don't really make it a thing or a standard practice, which I don't feel is right. have form, break apart form, use form in a free flowing manner. So, but that's just what I've been working on. Cool. Cool. Do we want to keep riffing on like different things in like the expensive Manjusai, or do we want to get right? We want to get right into the topic.
Well, since I paid for them, I better work on them. That's the main thing. I mean, get my use out of them. Yeah, I'm probably going to add side of the mix this week as well. So it just gives you a little extra dynamic on stuff. So,
but should not run you over $50, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody, if it's running over $50, you're like looking. I mean, you better be buying that fifth mansion and that seventh yacht. Like it.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. No.
Diamond encrusted side.
No. I just want a balance. That's all I want. That's all I ask for.
That's all we need. So one thing we were going to get into, and I had mentioned this. So it was funny. I had mentioned this probably like 3 weeks ago, and then kind of things took over.
Probably you've mentioned it a half a dozen times over the last year and a half. So it's kind of.
Did I?
Well, I mean, I think it's just kind of
a topic we'll throw out, and it's just kind of. It's compatible.
Throw it out. Or I think you have, because it's kind of. I think it's always kind of been on our radar. So it's like, okay, so today we're going to hit it. So.
Okay, good. So what is this thing we're actually going to hit?
I don't know. What do we? No.
Well, so like, that's not this podcast, Jeremy. It's the wrong podcast.
Hey, I've now officially hit the 50 club. So I'm like,
shit! Happy birthday, man.
Yeah, it was a little while ago, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm 50. Yeah, great. All right, awesome. So.
Well, we're 15 years away from collecting pension. So.
Well, I can sign up for AARP now. I found that out. So I'm like, ooh, AG's got benefits. Yeah, all right, go me. So, all right.
Well, I can tell you about something that doesn't cost you anything, with the exception of possibility of your life and soul, which starting with, like a guy like Jim Jones, or I don't know, those people that Quentin Tarantino was trying to lampoon in that last movie he was in. Was that Jim Jones? I forget. No, it was the Manson family. Because that specifically being cults.
Yeah, exactly.
And I must preface this as saying that we've done no research on this topic, even though, as most of these podcasts, we've just completely off the cuff, completely unresearched, just from memory. What we may say here may or may not be true, and any and all the characters are completely incidental.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But we're talking about, I guess, the ease in which karate, and I guess in martial arts in general, but karate in specific, tends to get cultified, or can get cultified.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic, and you kind of, I know you've seen it, I've seen it, and sometimes it's just a perception on how people perceive a certain thing, or how someone's acting in training or something like that.
And I think we can compare it to like, yeah, I think the idea of perception is good. And I think that's comparable to like the guy who's gonna go there for like twice a week, or another way of cracking it is like how cults are kind of spun around as like religion.
Yeah.
Religion where people who are like, they'll go to a church or whatever, but I mean, it doesn't really affect their lives all that much.
Yeah.
But then you have like the super like overly cultish thing where it's like you need to like overly write about everything you're doing every day and repent for everything that you've ever done, or kind of made up things and things overly led by the leader.
Yeah. And I think there's some distinctions with it. I think you get into someone who's just training,
right?
2 or 3 days a week or 1 day a week, whatever. Then you get into someone who has it as a lifestyle, which really they're really looking at it pretty pretty intently, pretty close to, 7 days a week, 7 days a week. You're really either training or really doing a lot of analysis on it, and then get into almost cultish kind of behavior. I don't know necessarily really if it's really truly a cult, but it gets into like cultish kind of behavior or perceptions on how people react, how they communicate,
Yeah.
how they're taken outside of the training hall or dojo, whatever you want to call it.
Right, and I guess we can't really call anything out specifically, but I mean, we can, but I mean, does this open us up to liability?
I don't want to get into it. I hope we don't get to that. That's
Eh,
I figured that's kind of the ground rules on this one, because we can get ourselves in a sticky situation. I really don't want to get into, and I don't think I'm an expert on that.
Well, on the topic of cults, where it's like, there are very few real Jim Jones versions of karate, right? Like there are very few like Manson family versions of karate, and like and a lot of the time if there is like something similar to that or akin to that, overall it's generally harmless. I mean, at least to the point where, like, even though, like, the people will be probably sacrificing a lot of money or their time or something like that, yeah, that's not okay. And then there's, like, cult behavior and abuse, right?
Yeah.
Where it's, like, just teachers just beating crap out of their students and their students just having to take it.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's to the extent at which that behavior is. Anything, like, kind of that goes beyond that, I think kind of gets more, like, I do want to do research in one episode, one group in like South Central America that essentially is like this weird Catholic organization that requires all of its members to do a form of karate, and like they need to like, yeah, this is a real thing where like they actually like in order to like fight against like communism. Apparently, again, that's a day we're gonna actually have to do some research for. But I've kind of in passing have heard of this, but I think, but kind of getting away more from that, but more towards cult type behavior that happens in organizations and in karate, and the fine line in which that can happen.
I think there's more than just one fine line to it as well too. And one of the things that we were talking about, I think there is also a fine line between that perception of an instructor to try to bring out more in their students than what they ever thought they could accomplish. Basically, climb that mountain they never thought they could, or break down that wall, whatever. And sometimes, that mind over matter kind of mentality kicks in, and sometimes it appears like, what's really going on here? I mean, they're not. But on the same token, some people may appear to see that as a perception of, hey, something's not right or something doesn't feel right, to where you're looking at more personal achievement and things like that. So
right, and so there's like so especially when people are like, yes sensei, when you hear people say yes sensei, no sensei, if we want to take it from like the kind of suburban white America, I think like even from their perspective they would see that as a cult, possibly, when in reality it's just an odd usage of a different language, right?
Well, I mean, in some ways, I mean, if you're on your floor and stuff, and it's instilling some type of discipline with your students, okay, that's one thing. If you're out at the local supermarket and sensei, and that kind of stuff, like, that's kind of odd.
Kind of, and the other thing is, like, if we're going to go from linguistic point of view, in Japanese, you would never say "Hi, sensei." No, never really. Doesn't happen. You would say just "Hi." You wouldn't say "Hi, sensei," but that would sound strange even in that context.
Yeah.
Where I think I don't know. It sounds like I hate referencing it consistently, but apparently it has become a cultural. It was in the cultural membrane that has now risen to the surface, like Karate Kid. You hear that so much, like from that, and kind of possibly spawned from that. Bow to your sensei, right? Fun stuff like that. But I mean, you can even use that as a kind of a referent to somebody who's just, the guy in the American parachute pants who's trying to get everyone to listen to him.
Yeah.
The attempts of doing that, I think, are generally harmless. But it's when they actually happens is where there's problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't disagree on that at all.
Well, and so what I mean by it's not problematic. It's like, okay, so somebody spent money on a space and they want to conceive a certain attitude within the space and they want to be centered on themselves. They think they've achieved something. How much more different is that something than like opening another type of business? And like in that case, it's weird, it's odd, but it's mostly harmless. To quote Douglas Adams.
I mean, to a point, but I guess the one question that I've got is how much ego is in the middle of it?
Oh, all of it.
Right.
All of it.
I mean, is the ego driving it, or is the ego just being used as a tool to teach? Because I think if the ego is just being used as a tool to teach in some type of discipline or some type of in that aspect, I don't see that. I don't think that's that big of a problem. It could be, but not as much as you're driving your ego just to do this. It's like, yeah, that ends up usually that never turns out well.
Right. And so I mean, like, you mean in terms of using the ego to teach is actually kind of putting on a character in a way to in some way inspire your students or or get a result out of them.
I mean, you mentioned misusing or misabusing or abusing students, by cranking down on techniques and things like that. I mean, I'm definitely one that your student definitely needs to feel it, but I don't think he needs to feel it for 20, 30 years either,
No.
from a permanent injury. So I guess the thing of it is at that point, where's the instructor's responsibility at that point? Are they even thinking about this?
Well, and then that's the thing where let's back up a minute on that.
Okay.
Because I think that's kind of the center of something, but to kind of get to it from another angle is, and this is something I've been thinking about lately, and I think it centers on this. Let's think about karate training. What is karate training?
I mean, technically, it's whatever the instructor brings to the class.
Yeah.
Technically. I mean, it can be philosophical, it can be technique-wise, it can be conditioning-wise. There's so many different things.
It's and like it kind of all boils down together in that, right?
You're right.
But that in all is involved in a training, right?
Right.
That's train that you have to get on the floor and start moving and start doing stuff. You don't kind of it's not a wait and see and get amazed phenomenon, right?
Not usually.
It shouldn't be, right?
There were a couple times I was picking myself off the floor and I was amazed how I got down there. So anyway, sorry.
That's a good way of putting it. No, but I mean more as in terms of like, I feel like in some ways it's become this where we're kind of waiting to see it work, right?
Right.
We're kind of waiting to see the knockout technique happen, or waiting to see like, oh, the real cool thing happen. That's not karate training. That's a demonstration. That's a magic trick. That's Cirque du Soleil. That's Siegfried and Roy. Like, that's all that crap. Like karate training generally doesn't involve that at all.
that's something stupid that Jeremy did. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Back many moons ago. Yes. But
Uh,
yeah,
to be a
it's
member of that class.
oh, man. Yeah, it was over 30 years ago. I still remember that class. Holy cow. Great lesson. So
Kind of wandered around we kind of wandered around there, but to kind of recenter it, whereas like to say like we're you kind of what where how this relates to kind of cultish behavior is that kind of the thing everyone's waiting for, right? The thing to be delivered by the person, not
it,
for everybody in the group to be achieving a goal towards.
right. And I think sometimes what'll lead up into that attitude is sometimes when the instructor just gives just a little bit to just kind of entice you, like, okay, how do you do that? How do you do that? And it kind of like is my buddy that I work with. It's kind of like the golf syndrome. Maybe playing just the most awful game of golf, one round, and then all of a sudden you hit a shot that Tiger Woods would be amazed at. And guess what? That brings you back the next day to play another round of golf. I mean, it's that
Right.
kind of that mentality. It's like, wow, I did that, or wow, that was really cool. How'd they do that? And I'll be perfectly honest. I that's what really drove my interest was how do you do that? What the heck? And once I started developing, it was like, how can I do that? And how many times can I do that? And now it's like, you know, did I really need to do that much? So I'll just
You had people around you who were not acting like they all were the only ones who had the answer, or like they weren't trying to overshow everything that they could do. They were trying to get you from a certain point to another point.
oh no, had I've had a couple. I've had a couple.
Right, right, right.
We will not get into that.
But main people you have mentioned on here before.
Right. I mean,
Right.
yeah,
That
Mike and Robbie definitely know. I mean, I think I will be perfectly honest. I think Robbie was heading down that course for a while, and I think I don't know. I think him really looking. That was one really cool thing about Robbie is he'd always take a time out whenever he just sensed, something just doesn't feel right here. Something doesn't feel right here. And I think he realized, look, I'm becoming somebody I don't like. And when he did that, he changed a lot of stuff up almost on a dime. And it was kind of a hard lesson, but it was overall very good. And I think that's why I guess in a way I kind of see those kind of behaviors is because we were kind of getting into that. I think when you had 200 plus students, I mean, we're in almost a 4,000 square foot dojo. It's like, wow, I can definitely see how your ego could definitely be poked a little bit on it.
Yeah, and then you start getting kind of high on your own supply, thinking that, well, you can do no wrong.
Right.
Or I think it's like, and this kind of gets into people like doing magic effectively with their techniques and whatnot, and like having to do demonstrations, and then like essentially having to do the same thing to wow people. And in a way, this creates that cult mentality of that to kind of maybe go in the direction of like the great one, the leader,
Yeah.
the Uber teacher, right? We all want to get and become that person, right? We all must work very hard to get to that person's level and do whatever that person says, right?
Yeah. It's yeah. It becomes kind of interesting when it gets to that point. So
Well, and like, so how does it get to that point? Or how does it go? Or I guess, how should we define it between someone who's just a charismatic teacher versus cult mentality?
I
Because you said there's fine lines.
I I I definitely think there are fine lines on it. I think whenever you've got somebody, one, I think it's definitely the attitude that the instructor brings into the dojo. Number one. Number two, I think the other part of it is what that instructor brings outside of the dojo. Like there is one person in our area, he has been very famous or very notably known.
Infamous, if you will.
You can call it that, I guess. I wouldn't, but whatever. I mean, what he'll do is he will, whenever somebody goes up and says, "Hi, my name is so and so," he will introduce himself as, "Hi, my name is Master so and so." I mean, just in the grocery store, just, I'm like, okay, this man believes way too much of himself.
What is he, Mr. T? First name Mr., middle name period, last name T?
No, I don't want to discuss that piece of it, but it's just I don't want to call I definitely want to call person out, but I just don't get that kind of it's so Bob. I don't need that in my life, but it just goes to show it's like to me when you into as I like to call the real world, not the dojo, but the real world,
Right.
And you're conversing with just normal, people who, one, more than likely do not practice. Number two, they could give a crap less whether you're master, hanshi, kyoshi, renshi, whatever title you are,
Whatever funny pajamas you happen to wear on any given day.
or whatever belt, whether it's black with a camo stripe or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but it's just.
I'd love a belt with a camo stripe on it. That'd be a good look.
That would be kind of cool. But anyway, sorry as we digress. But no,
Hey, you're giving me ideas for the merch section. Come on.
but it's like it's almost like your ego is taken over to feed your ego even bigger outside of where your true area of influence really is.
Right.
And I think once you see that, I think your students try to emulate that and they think that's okay. I think that's crap. I mean, you may get a lot of hate mail on this, but I think it's total crap. I'm sorry.
You bring all the hate mail. Anybody who has any problem with that, tweet at Jeremy. As I always say, we'll put his handle up on the episode. Don't worry. The whole thing is like, we worked really really hard here to really disestablish ourselves from that. The reason why is because this is where this is an end road, not the end road, but that's an end road to that kind of behavior, where you end up having, and you hit it on the head. It's not just what you're doing. If you see like one person being like, "Hi, I'm Master Smith," and like the rest of the people in town be like, "Wow, that guy's crazy," and then you get two people being like, "I'm Master Smith, I'm Master Jones." Okay, there's a little more of this. They're they're asexually reproducing, and then you get like 5 or 6 people calling them master, and it's just a bad Doctor Who episode. Why in God's earth would you start calling yourself that in public, other than just to appease something that has nothing to do with your public?
I mean, I go back to our guiding principles like number 2. Be polite and obedient to the master and other superiors. Be courteous among fellow students and followers. You must strive to develop humbleness. How humble is it to go out into a supermarket and introduce yourself to the master? What the hell ever. I really don't care.
I hope they've got golden bombed business cards.
Whatever. I could care less. I mean, I'm pretty good with whatever you want to call me, as long as you don't call me asshole, and that's saved for my wife. So it's kind of
I'm less of the person where it's like, you can't say that stuff around my, because I normally say that kind of stuff around my XYZ, but to each their own. Kids maybe not so much, but
then then I tie into how the student sees the instructor being out in public, and then when they get to a point, and I've seen this, and this behavior has always bothered me a little bit, and there's a part where you are like this during training because you're so wrapped up into what you're doing. But whenever you, I wouldn't say necessarily accomplished it, or at least gotten somewhat proficient in it, start moving away from it. But whenever the student tends to not think for themselves, oh,
Right.
Master so and so says this, and Master so and so says this, and Master so and so says that I need to go to the bathroom a certain way. Come on, think for yourself, doggone it. It's like, knock that off. It's like you're not really doing your training any benefit if you're not thinking for yourself, because guess what? Life is going to hit you whether it's in the boardroom or on the street or wherever. And if you can't think for yourself and you can't do something without Master so and so telling you what to do, what the hell good are you? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little fired up, but that just really irritates me.
No, this is good. This is good. This is good. I like fired up Jeremy. It's like grinding. It's like, what grinds my gears. Except it's more of a Missouri accent than a Boston accent.
Yeah, I speak hillbilly. All right, so it's all right.
That's fine. I know enough. I can translate. Well, and where this also goes into is where the students will start feedback looping into the quote unquote master, or into the quote unquote messianic figure or whatever, because they will feed that behavior.
Yes.
Because even though 9 out of 10 people will be like, "What the hell you mean, master so and so?" 1 out of 10 people will say, "Yes, master so and so." And so you get enough of them people around, then that's when you end up creating that kind of cult mentality. And when you start creating that effective cult, what I think is also, we mentioned this in passing before, the whole idea of effectively cutting off people from the outside world.
Yeah.
Or cutting off people from being able to talk or train outside of where they
Right.
are, which was easier back in the day than it is now.
Right.
That whole idea of, like, you can only train here, you can only get this here, there's nowhere else you can get this. It's an absolute fallacy if anyone thinks that today.
Yeah.
There's certain people who have been able to do certain things and have certain kind of abilities. Yeah, it's true.
And they may have a certain perspective, and that's cool. I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But to say that somebody else is never going to be able to do it unless you train with me, what is your deal, dude? No, I don't buy that. No,
or unless you train with Master so and so.
Yeah, exactly. But another place where this comes up is whenever you have students start to build their skill level and they start becoming instructors as well. And I'll mention this one story. I won't rat the person out, but if they're listening, they probably remember this.
We don't like rats on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't like them.
We'll feed them to gerbils.
Yeah, no.
Or the habu.
I'll never forget. I'm going through some training at one of the schools, and a guy comes in. He had just, I think he'd just gotten his Shodan. I think he'd just gotten that. And I don't even remember what I was working on, but then he says, you can't do technique unless you do this. And that was what Master so-and-so said. And after, this person's been training, 4 or 5 years. And at that point, I've been training 22, 23 years, probably. And I just asked him, I'm like, I'd like to prove your theory wrong. Come on, step on the mat, and I'll be more than happy to show you that I can do these techniques without learning whatever. And he thought about it, and the other guy who was with him's like, you don't want to do this. You really do not want to step on the mat with him. It wasn't so much I was mad. I was just mad I was very irritated at the attitude that came, and it's like it was poorly thought out and personally, it was really stupid. But what are you going to do outside? Whether it's like I said, in the boardroom, on the street, wherever you're at,
in the discotheque.
Yeah. I mean, grocery store, whatever. I mean, are you going to be so arrogant as to tell someone that they can't do something when you really don't know their abilities or what they can or cannot do?
And there's also a weird. So when there's that attitude, there also tends to be a very strong sense of insecurity.
Yes.
right? Because there's in a lot of these guys' lives, I'm not going to say, not all of them, not everyone, right? But a lot of people who need to tag on to, or need to feel the need to tag on and completely grab hold of whatever they're being fed.
Right.
The reason why they have that insecurity is because they have that insecurity about themselves. But if someone tells them, you have this, ergo you can do this, and anyone else who says anything different is wrong, they latch onto that, and that's their safety blanket, that's their security blanket, that's their shield in any given situation. They get called out on that, especially in that particular situation. That was a situation where someone very unthoughtfully said that and didn't really expect anything, didn't really have the foresight to think of what situation would occur when someone actually called them out, because that thinking did not actually enter in that thinking did not enter into, well, someone could call this idea out. A smarter person who would bring that down the line would actually teach to their disciple, that's how you prove yourself, blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah.
So the line, but because that's where that insecurity comes from, where it's like, well, yeah, because this guy said this, ergo I'm right. Well, no, you're not. So it's people who just want to be right, or want to be in the right because guy said this.
Yeah, you might be right, you might be wrong, but I mean, it can go both ways. But so I think that's one of the dangers also with that kind of perception, because now let's get into just training from that perspective. I mean, we're kind of going almost all the way circle on this.
Right.
If you got, I mean, and you bring up a good point, and I'm just going to tag on to it, but when you just blindly accept what somebody says, oh, that is the truth. This must be the truth. And you don't go and figure out and think, well, why is this the truth? Or just ask that simple question. How is this actually working? Is it actually working? Who is it going to work on? Things like, I mean, just simple why questions, and you accept that as truth, you're completely jacking up your own training. I mean,
and perspective.
Well, and perspective, and theory, and how everything's put together.
Because think about having a dinner table conversation with that guy.
Yeah.
Or working with that guy, or like anything else.
You go back to something as simple as math. 2 + 2 = 4. Well, who's to say 2 + 2 doesn't equal fish? I mean, quoting the Big Short movie. I don't know if you've seen that or not. I've kind of enjoyed some of the lines in that movie, but the one guy is like, "This makes no sense. 2 + 2 = fish," and that's what you get when you have somebody that blindly goes and accepts the truth, and you don't actually try to prove it or actually see if it works. You get
2008 in the American housing market collapse.
Or 2021, you're pretty quick. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of good lines from that movie.
Yeah.
Very good movie.
Yeah.
So I mean, so essentially what we're saying is like, don't blindly follow what these other people are doing. How, I guess, I'm kind of in a way to kind of, I don't want to say put a bow on this necessarily, but like, what are the things to kind of watch out for in terms of where someone goes with this? How can we see if like what someone is saying is like cat shit wrapped in dog shit? To appropriate more lines from The Big Short.
Yeah. That's another one of my favorite. I say one of the things is trust your gut. If you have people coming up to you as you come in the dojo, and they're like exuberantly energetic, joyful, and when they're talking about things, oh, Sensei is the greatest, and Sensei is this, and Sensei, and it's like, okay, back off. You're almost like a piranha person. You're just way too close. just stop. Let me make up my own mind. I can make up my own mind. And I think that's one of the biggest things to look out for. I think the other thing is I like to see how students are off the floor as a, not just on the floor as well. How they how are they? How is their mental capacity? I guess.
Yeah.
Are they
Okay.
mental?
Are, do they do they need their teacher to function?
Yeah, I mean,
Is it a codependency relationship?
yeah, exactly. I mean, because that way that's on your way outside of the dojo, outside of the training hall. Is it just on the floor, or is it also okay? You kind of
Well,
scared me a little bit. So
yeah. And what is it? I think I've been lucky because one of my initial martial arts experiences was with someone who was like very commercial, but you actually like saw that he doesn't even believe that he's like didn't he wasn't actually on high on his own supply.
yeah,
So you like saw how other people treated him, and like it was like quite normal. In fact, there were some people who were like a little more like buying that he was the master or whatever, but like it was on like a very minimal level.
yeah,
Um, and but like when I started working with other people, and I was seeing like some people who were like very rational, very like kind of like just not disillusioned, but like they were like had the head on their shoulders, and other
yeah,
people would be like, we must follow person. Person says things that are good. Person says things that we must follow. Follow person through the grave. Like
yeah,
person is like Paul from the Bible. Like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it
I will
literally
say,
those things were actually said to me. Um, other person is like Jesus.
holy cow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually
Now,
heard these.
oh my God. Okay. Now, I haven't. I'm not going to totally pick on this, but in a way, I will pick on it a little bit. But probably about 25 years ago, I'd say 25 to 30 years ago,
All right, midnight.
this early 90s, early to mid 90s.
Okay, so we're not at necessarily at Heat, but we are beyond Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking basically Aikido.
Okay,
I mean, now I know a lot of people that train in Aikido, very well grounded, very cool. I have met some of the absolute, pardon my French, batshit nuts people on planet Earth that train in that, and it's just like they almost come across as if they believe they're enlightened or something. It's just like, dude, no, oh my goodness, no.
well,
It's just like, and I mean, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, probably a lot of that propagated from the Steven Seagal movies and stuff like that. And there are still a couple of the early ones that I still think were halfway decent. Sorry. Um,
we will probably tackle them at some time on Cry Without Belts. Be real.
no, probably not. But anyway,
All right, fine. You don't have to be on those episodes.
I don't
I
know,
can
but
actually legitimately say I've never seen a Steven Seagal movie.
really, no,
I think I have. I can't like. It is not in my head. John Claude Van Damme. Yes, but Steven Seagal, like, no, I
I,
don't think so.
I would say probably Hard to Kill was probably the one that really kind of got me interested in martial arts. I mean that.
So, guys, stay tuned for our Hard to Kill review on Try Without Belts. Be real. Jeremy's gonna be leading that episode.
No, but I mean it just had a real. There are certain places that had a very strange dynamic, and there are certain places. And a buddy of mine, he's really into keto, but he's really very well grounded. And he
Right.
goes, and when I walk into these places, he goes, I'm going to warn you, this person's just kind of like nuts. Okay, and he'd ask me a little later, what'd you think? Yeah, that person's absolutely crazy. Holy cow. This person should be locked up in a straitjacket,
Well,
But, and I mean,
I think.
I knew one instructor that all they did was private lessons. I mean, that's what they did, and his students could come in at any time except they had to schedule a time throughout the day, and he would charge them like $140 an hour, and this was back in the 90s.
Jesus Christmas.
I'm like, holy
What?
shit.
For Aikido?
Yeah. It's just, gee.
You better have magic powers by the end, because geez.
And what was it? We did this huge, because we did this huge, I don't know, get together and stuff at the place. And I mean, this guy had 75, 80 students doing this. And you're just like, holy catfish.
He's making a lot of money.
That's
a lot of Aikido money.
I think a lot of people kind of figured it out after a while. Like, holy cow! But I mean, that was one case where I mean, oh yeah, Sensei is like the greatest, and he is all knowing. And that, oh my goodness! All right, okay, great. You know, and then you'd have there was another case that was really interesting where a lot of people would talk like that about the guy who was running the dojo. And I mean, I will say this. To this day, it was the coolest school I've ever seen in my entire life, ever. I mean, awesome. I mean, down to every minute little detail. It was like, wow. It was pristine. But when you got the guy, you know, alone and was able to just kind of talk with him, he's one of the nicest, most down-to-earth people you ever run into. I mean, and he goes, I don't know why these people do this. Some of these people, he goes, usually they get all hyped up and stuff, and usually they'll last about a year or three, between a year and 3 years, and then they're on their way. And I'm like, he goes, whatever, that's fine.
But he still had people say really good things about him.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was just like he is so enlightened and this and that and the other thing. I don't want to do this. He was like, he goes,
he's the karate teacher who just doesn't want to be there. He's like, he can't be bothered. Actually, he just gets on the floor and like he just says like a couple things, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, he's so amazing!" And he's just like, "I don't, just do the stance, and just do the stance." Like, yes, Sensei. He's like has this like strong amount of charisma that he doesn't even like having, but he just gets like a million people on the floor. And he's just, he has a school. It just runs perfectly, but he just doesn't like it. He like wants to go off and be a carpenter. People keep begging him to come on back. That's as far as I've ever found.
No, I mean, don't get wrong. I mean, he loved teaching, but he goes, I don't know why people get into this crazy mentality stuff. Like, he goes, if I'm enlightened, I don't know about it. So I was just, I mean, just it's like, okay, that's pretty cool.
That's when you know he's actually truly enlightened.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I kind of appreciate him quite a bit, and I catch up with him every so often, but I haven't caught up with him in probably about 5 or 6 years. So I'm just kind of curious how he's doing, but I'm sure he's doing fine. But
cool.
So, anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go
I
off
think we ended up our like warning of cults in like an extremely positive note. Be like, yeah, this guy's still enlightened. Go to his classes. It's fine. Join a cult. He actually ended up promoting cults. Great.
No. No.
Podcasts can go anywhere. No, I think the thing is to just kind of watch out for. You're exactly right. Watch out for how like the students treat them. Watch out for how someone is around their students and who they are in and outside of the classroom. But I think it doesn't need to be Jim Jones in order to be a cult or to be abusive. I think that's going to get into one of our topics we're going to cover probably in the next week or a couple of weeks, is talking about like bad teachers yet good lessons.
Yeah,
this is going to kind of be our flag in the grass in terms of talking about cults. So
cool.
But you're working on this week.
Basically, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be working more, just looking at the tactical aspects on some of the weaponry and stuff. Comparing it to hand stuff. And it's been interesting, just some of the stuff that I've looked at and uncovered. It's like, why would my favorite question is, why are we doing this? Why is this here? Why is that there? Why, who in their right mind would do this with a weapon, much less empty hand? So it's just kind of trying to make sense of certain things that just don't seem right. So
That kata just ain't right.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That sounds good. Working on a kata that a friend of ours, Chuck, in fact, had helped me out with getting some information on, and trying to build on that a little more. Kind of bounce off you and him, work on that, and as well as my never-ending clash with Jeff Bezos over Amazon not sending stuff. Now they're just not sending anything.
Well, no planes are flying out anywhere. So.
Well, no. They're it's not from the States. It's internally in this country, and it's all completely against the islands because there's some like shipping company problem that Amazon Japan's having with southern Japan.
Jeez.
And like they're just like, we can't ship things because shipping company says problem. They won't like specify. They're like, because of typhoon. There's a typhoon 3 weeks ago. You still can't put things on a boat. The boats have been coming every day. So I think it's just Jeff Bezos's secret war against me.
No, I gotcha. Right.
So we made a good enemy. We made a very good enemy. Enemies we deserve on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Good luck with that
one. Cool. Anything else you want to say in closing?
No, I mean, just trust your gut on it. Don't even if something kind of appears as cult-esque or whatever, it more than likely isn't, but it just kind of seems very, very odd. More than likely.
Yeah.
So
keep an open mind, definitely, and keep an open mind, but also trust your gut, and don't let one overlap on the other.
And always ask why.
The why is the biggest factor. If you're in a place where you can't do why, then get out.
Get out. Yep.
Cool. Speaking of getting out, I think that's where we're going now. So this has been John.
This is Jeremy.
Everyone, don't forget to keep on training.